What do we know about it? We don't really know. We're going to talk about it.
Hi guys on Facebook. I am joining on Instagram right now. We're doing this a little out of order these days because I'm ridiculous.
The next match.
Let's give us a second. I'm almost live. Hi, now we're official.
Here we are. We're ready.
That timing is just, whatever. Hi guys, welcome to True Mental Health to the people who are seeing me for the first time. We are talking about the mental health of money today.
It's up in your world. It's up in my world.
So
I know. Okay.
So we're really playing with choosing a direction and just starting to talk about it, which is going to go how it goes today. So we really didn't chat about this much, except for this week, I'm opening a business and money energy exercise shop that you can go check out starting tomorrow. I almost want to give the domain. Okay. No, you can't. If you want to be in on the grand opening week, I'm actually not opening it until tomorrow. So if you want to be in on that, go just private message me. I'll get you into the Telegram group and we'll get you into the grand opening launch. But I created this exercise shop because what I really, really recognized was that we get ourselves into these really, really crunchy, hard places in creating, with getting into our head, making ourselves wrong, feeling like we failed. And then a lot of times, it takes so much time to get ourselves out of it, right? We judge ourselves into a corner and we don't know how to get out of it. And so that was the purpose of the shop. And so I thought we could talk a little bit and riff on what is the mental health of money, because it's very different than, I know you and I have been playing in this for quite some time, and we're constantly talking about it and looking at it. And so, yeah, where could we start with this today?
Oh my God. Well, when you asked that of me on our 2-second call before we jumped on live, I was just about to and you're like, wait, don't have the show before we have the show. And that's what I love about this, is that it's just really, truly organic and what is coming through in the moment. And what I was going to say in that moment was, there is just so much resistance that comes up in my world with even talking about it. After being trained in mental health and a psychologist for so long, money was not a topic. It was not something we talked about in grad school, at all. And then I worked for years, over a decade, with folks that could not even afford to pay $10, $25 was the max in therapy for a therapy session.
Wow.
And so for a long time, I worked with folks where money was a real issue, and yet it still wasn't talked about. And so I'm kind of what is that? Why is this? It's so taboo. There's so much resistance for people to even be fully transparent about their prices online. And so I was just kind of this needs to be a conversation to, have folks have some more ease, right? Because I'm just really getting, there is so much stress around it these days.
Yeah, gosh, that's huge. Yeah, that's interesting that it isn't even talked about. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I remember saying, or I've said, is I went into my 20s not even really knowing. I knew I needed to move out and get my own place, but I didn't even know how to do that. There was nothing about money that I was actually educated on. We were just supposed to move out or whatever that was, and I know we all have such a different story, but mine was okay, I needed to get my own place and start my own life. And how do you even do that? So the whole money conversation was never, you're exactly what you said, it was never discussed. And then there's this other piece of it that you brought up that's really interesting, where it's most of the therapists that I went to see in mental health specifically, or workers in that field, or people that were really interested in supporting other people, either had a sliding scale or worked on a really, really low, income range. And so, yeah, there's so many different facets of this, and so much that I've changed around it. Yeah.
Wow. There's exploded. I was just starting to go into how I see it tied with mental health is kind of the empowerment versus the disempowerment. Yeah. So recently I posted on my feed about closing on a house, super excited about, and that, and I'd said it's our second property and we rent out our first property. And all of a sudden there was a slew of, I don't know, 5 or 8 folks that really had very strong points of view about that, about like, you can't be spiritual and be a landlord, and you are hoarding if you have more than one piece of property. And I was like, wow, there was just so much conclusion before and without even knowing the process of my story. And it was so funny because it was not even a belief in my world that I was doing something wrong, or that like having multiple pieces of property was a wrongness. So I was just like, this is a real pain point for folks, that it's like, if you have more, then you are taking from others. Right. And that's where I'm getting that, like, when you go on the mental health spectrum, where we start kind of at this like victim, more disempowered mindset. And as we move along to more consciousness, we're more empowered. So that if that's kind of, I found that in that range there of like, I have more, so I'm taking from you, versus like, you have more, and now I see that you have more, and I could have more too, which would be to me the empowerment.
Yeah, cool. And so what I'll add to that I am getting so much awareness of and articulation of, is that every single thing you choose has an energy. And so what I am learning about as the true mental health of everything is that if you don't acknowledge or make it about the energy, then you've totally missed the point. Because there's so many different stances you can take on anything. So if we look at money, for example, you can take the spiritual point of view, which is there just one? I mean, that's probably a spectrum in and of itself, spiritual points of view. But let's call the spiritual point of view. You can take the religious point of view. You can take my family's point of view. You can take your culture's point of view. There's a lot of different already created, constructed realities out there that are claiming and jostling for being the right point of view. And before Access Consciousness, I was seeking to find my tribe, my point of view. Where are my people for whatever it was I was looking for, right? Because I was looking to find the thing that I fit with that would then inform how I could function in the world, which I think is a lot of what we're shown and a lot of what we choose. We go looking for our tribe, our people, and people find that, think they find it in spirituality or in religion or in therapy or in psychology or whatever. And then they go about giving up whatever they believed before in favor of their new tribe's point of view. But none of that is the conversation of what really renders you functional. What is it for you that actually allows your life to work? Which I think just kind of pulls out it just pulls the conversation over into here. Let's just like drop all that for a second and look at, is it working? And to me, that's the true mental health of anything. It's like, if it's not working, is it really true that if you do the same things and you expect different results, is that actually going to work? Or is that the definition of insanity, no matter which camp you're in?
Yeah.
So if what you're doing isn't working, if your point of view is literally creating less, first of all, look at if that's working for you. For some people that works. Like less and survival and, living at whatever level that is, works for a lot of people. And I think as a person who does want more and wants to have greater and more and, loves luxury and all that stuff, I have to remember that does really work for some people. And there are a huge percentage of people that choose that will tell you they didn't choose it, that put themselves in the victim role in that regard, and that will use that to make people like me wrong. But if I get that that's what occurs, then I don't have to make myself wrong. I can just get that some people choose that's what works for them, and they're probably going to make me wrong, and that's okay. That right there, from allowance, that's a consciousness thing. That's what the earth is. Allowance is just, everything's just an interesting point of view, including your point of view, my point of view, and everything. And from allowance, we can choose and create anything we want to have, less or more, what's going to work for you. So I think I addressed 52 things in saying all of that.
I do love that, like, where you're kind of bringing us back to the foundation of what is really functional. And I get that oftentimes, like, those folks that are making all those comments, that wasn't even an awareness for them. It's just like functioning from survival, functioning from needing to defend the point of view that feels true and right for them, right? And it's like, when we're in that survival mode, we're in more of the, just less awareness, less consciousness mode, where we just won't even hear each other at that point. Our folks can't even hear what I'm saying. And so And it's funny because like someone came back pretty aggressively, like, how dare you call yourself spiritual? I was like, whoa.
Personally, what I would say is like, I'm not spiritual.
Yeah.
I actually am not that.
Yeah.
And that's what I say to people all the time. Somebody said to me the other day of like, how can you preach love and kindness when something like this, like, how can you talk about this stuff and then say something like that? And I was like, I actually don't preach that. I don't do what it is you say that you think I'm doing. I'm all about choice and allowance and what's going to work for you and what's going to render things functional. And if you haven't heard that, that's not on me, that's on you. So, but a lot of this conversation that we're having right this second is about each of us giving ourselves the space and the possibility of having our own reality, regardless of what other people think about it. And to me, that's the mental health of money. You get to have exactly what you want to have as your reality, no matter what that looks like. And so a lot of what we'll gift you with Access Consciousness classes is like, just for you, just for fun, never tell anyone. Like, it's nobody's business but yours. You know, like, you can have exactly what you want. And when you go to share it with somebody, you got to lower yourself to their level in order to share it. And if they reject it, then you have to reject yourself. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Just keep your shit to yourself. Like, have exactly what you want to have as your reality, show what you want to show, and choose what you choose. So, but that thing of like, what would it take to be willing to have your reality and explore what your reality is, no matter who thinks what about it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was seeking to be pretty intentional with the housing process of like, I was very aware of a loud, you know, collective energy around it being a lot of very scarce and very intense and blah, and all the points of view about it. And there was a real demand in my world to put my attention elsewhere. I'm like, I will create something else with this. So that was helpful to see in that it almost wasn't like I had to force it. I was just literally like, this is what I'm choosing. That's it. And I will keep redirecting my energy this way. But it wasn't like I have to do something else or I have to fight against it, you know, about that other energy. It was a lot of ease. And so I'm like looking at that, I'm like, how do I recreate that? But in a different way. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, no, say more.
Yeah, because I'm looking at like, God, that was so easy to just do that. I chose it, but without even really obsessing about it, I guess.
So you chose what? You chose the house, or you chose like what?
Yeah. So I chose to not make myself add effect of the narrative of the reality.
Yeah. Cool.
And that's where I was getting at, like when people are doing funky stuff with money, or even when we're going through these crazy times, like, well, what else is possible?
Yeah. Well, what I've had to get, I think for me, I know that a lot of what consciousness it opens the doors to all healing, right? So wherever it is that you are feeling broken, or you're struggling, or you don't have what you know you could have, that's an area that requires healing. But what's different about consciousness than mental health, for example, is we don't assume that you're broken. We just assume that you don't have access to what you can really choose.
Yeah.
And so I love that, because as I've gotten that, what I now go looking for when I'm struggling is what I really have available to choose that I haven't chosen yet. And so I forget why I was bringing that up. Now you were saying something like, how do I get access to, what were you saying? Damn, lost my thread.
Oh, well, for some reason, the broken piece was picking out to me, and I'm wondering why that is. But like, because if we're looking at from the old paradigm of mental health, and we say people are mentally ill and they're broken, we're basically disempowering and saying like, you can't have this, or you can't have greater, or you can't have something else, versus I sense where you were going is like creating something else that was possible.
Yeah. So I guess so getting into this consciousness thing and being opened to like clearing out unconsciousness, which is what the Access Consciousness process do. They just clear out unconsciousness so you have more access to consciousness, and then getting more access to that and going, what would I really like to have as my financial reality? Probably was a 5-year conversation for me. And I think that's something to also kind of put in here is like changing your reality, or because everything that's showing up in your life with money is a result of your point of view. So points of view are what create reality, right? Like when you take a point of view that's, no matter what it's from, spirituality, cultural, whatever, you take a point of view, you buy it, and you live from it, you can only create from that point of view. The thing is that most of our points of view are incredibly unconscious. So we're still creating from them, we're still living from them, but we just don't know what they are, and we don't know that we're doing it. And so anyway, so then we go into all this other weird shit. But if you start to get that information, okay, my point of view is creating my reality, then you can kind of start to look around at what your reality is right now and go, a couple of things you could look at. What's my point of view that's creating this? Or you could go, okay, cool, this is what I've created so far. Is this really what I want to have? And start to really look at, what do you want to have as your reality? And, you know, as I was forming my new reality, because that's what this is, we're inventing what we can truly choose, because we live in a magnanimous universe. We live in a universe where all choices are available to us. And yet a lot of us function as if we only have this many choices. So it's starting to like bust those walls open and going, no, you actually have infinite choice. And you being thrust into that going, well, what the fuck would I even choose with infinite choice? At least when I was back there surviving, I knew what I was dealing with. This, I don't know, you know, and letting that transform us and like morph us, transform us into something we've never even been before. And yeah,
there's so much there. I was just getting like something like, well, if money is neutral, right, and then we project all these points of view, we literally try to put reference points on it, try to control it. And I was like, oh shit, that's a trauma response. Like anytime we're trying to control shit, it's because we're wanting to predict our reality. But yet like money in itself comes to us in very unexpected ways sometimes, like, oh, okay, like, hello, let's play today.
Money is actually, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, go ahead.
Money is a construct. It's an energy. Like if you guys go watch there's a series called The Ascent of Money, ASCENT, The Ascent of Money. And if you can find it on YouTube, and it's this big, it was on television and now it's on YouTube. And so it's a few hours, but it shows you like the ascent of money. Like how did money start? Like, how did we even get this construct in place? And so it shows you the history of it. And what you start to recognize is like, first of all, it's made up. It's not even, it literally is not even real. It's based on hot air. So it's a concept. And for the most part is this. So if it's not a real thing, then what is? What's the thing? And how do you get access to functioning with it as what it is instead of what we've made it? And we've made it so many different things, like money is cash, money is hard currency, money is this, money is that. We have so many definitions. And you know, the Access Consciousness tool called How to Become Money Workbook really like starts to decimate that structure in your world, because we've made it so many things, and we've made it mean things, and we've made it feel like things, and we've needed it, and we've lacked it, and all this insanity around money, which I would say is not true mental health. I would say that renders us fairly not functional.
That's a no, Bob.
That would be a no. That's like, yeah, and now you are a little puddle in the corner with like no ability.
So I'm curious, Len, what has been like, I don't know, maybe a pivotal point in time for you where it was like, there was like a real change shift with like your mental health and money and how you viewed it?
Well, there was a few. One in particular sticks out, and it was after I had finally given in to what Gary Douglas was telling us to do if we wanted to change our reality, which was go through the How to Become Money Workbook every single 2 weeks. He was saying, well, I went it every week. And I went through it every single week for like 8 weeks. And so the first things I started to notice is as I was going through this class, because it's a transcribed class in workbook form, was that I would wake up and my very first thoughts about money were how little I had. Like instantaneously, my eyes would open, my mind would go to my bank accounts, and I would be like, the energy that was there was like, shit.
Not the way you want to wake up and start your day.
How I started my day, but I didn't even know that. So that was the first thing I noticed, was like the moment I woke up, they went there, I went shit, and I started creating from that energy from that moment on. So I was constantly creating from, I don't have enough. Holy shit, what am I going to do? I don't have enough. What am I going to do? Well, I don't have enough. What am I going to do? So that was the energy that was infusing everything that I was choosing. And this is the key thing to get about money is like, it is literally energy. So I wasn't being money. I was being, holy shit, I don't have enough. What am I going to do? I don't have enough. What am I going to do? And when you're being that energy, that's more of that shows up.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter what's coming out of your mouth or what you're saying, you're being the energy that's going to show up in your world. And so I kept creating more and more struggle because I was being struggle.
Yeah.
So I had to first notice that because I didn't know that that's what I was doing. And so that's the first phase in getting access to true mental health with money is like listening to what you're doing. You have to pay attention to where your thoughts go with money, pay attention to what you're thinking and telling yourself. And so I started, that was the first steps. As I was paying attention to myself, what another piece of this workbook, what he's like, listen to yourself. Every time you hear yourself thinking about money, wake up. And I was like, wake up. Yeah. Consciousness, what's really true. And so what he gives you in the workbook is like, say this to yourself every time you hear yourself thinking about money. I am power. I am awareness. I am creativity. I am control. I am money. And he goes into what those things are, but that energy, he's like, from this energy, you can create anything. So that was my next practice, was literally like every single time and it was a lot. I was doing a lot of shit. I went into I am power, I am aware. I had to retrain myself to being something different actively, diligently for like 8 weeks. And even then, it wasn't like, I wouldn't say more money was starting to come into my account or anything, because turns out there was a process needed to even get to the point where I could actually actively choose something different in terms of inflow. But around week 8, I had been working with myself for 2 full months around this. It was getting more and more clear. It was getting more and more access to me. And I remember there being a moment where I was like, right, this doesn't make money come into your account. This renders me into someone that can choose something different. And now I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read that workbook like right now again.
You can do a class on it because you're a certified facilitator. And I think this is the thing you guys don't get about, like, I don't know. Anyway, we don't get this as facilitators. We have access to these incredible tools that literally render you functional within, like, something you've been trying to change for 40 years can change in weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And because it's like, and when you're talking about it too, it's kind of, when we're talking about learning to be something, then it's the embodiment of the tool, right? It's like, you can explain it all day long and I can like cognitively like be like, yeah, that makes sense. But until you're like doing it and like kind of maybe there's an experience or a choice to really get it, grok it at a different level in your body, it's different. Cause I was thinking about, okay, like what are some of the times that I like made some different choices? And again, it's like, it's almost hard to explain, where there were just some really pivotal moments where I was like, the credit card debt changes now. It's ending. Like
demand you make of yourself. The moment you make a demand of yourself, this is another like true mental health with money. The moment you make a demand, something will change.
Yeah. And the demand energy of, I can choose this, not I'm disempowered or I'm at effect of my reality. I can choose this. Right. And so it's definitely very much that energy. And then I would say the other thing has also been, each time that I'm leaning into some edges, some pretty expansive, scary choices that I'm like, I don't know how this money's going to show up, kind of thing, of like leaping to leave my job, like leaping to do the road to CF or things like that I've invested in, that, wow, like, okay, I'm like, how do I even describe it? It is like what you've said before, leaping out of the plane and building an parachute on the way down.
You just build a parachute on the way down. You're like, well, I guess now we either die or we build a parachute.
I get it, because like some folks online say like, well, don't encourage people to like leap outside their comfort zone. And I was just like, yes. And there is a process in the leap.
That point of view. Just so you know, that's not my point of view. I'm way all about, my life has expanded to the degree I'm willing to leap outside my comfort zone.
Well, okay. Would you say there's something about also in that process being aware or mindful of like what the accounts are doing? Like, it's also not being like unconscious, blindfolded. And it's like, I'm just going to leap and everything will be just fine because I'm at a
That's not leaping.
Right.
That's unconsciousness.
Yeah.
So I think the thing I'm getting and I'm articulating more these days is like, leaping is inclusive of everything. But it doesn't require any thinking. And we think that in order to include everything, we have to think hard about it, but that's actually exclusive. If you think about something, you are excluding awareness. So what I'm talking about is when you are looking at a choice that you know will make your life greater, you instantly include being an infinite being. If you include being an infinite being, you've included every other possible factor, and you don't have to discern, judge, think anything. Because infinite being includes everything, including your bank accounts, including you, including what you're capable of, including the people in your life. So the way you do that is you have a choice in front of you and it's making you sweat, and you look at it and you go, okay, well, will my life be greater in 5 years if I choose it? And if you get yes, you choose it without thinking. And then you become, in that instant, you become the source of that being able to physically actualize in your life. You are all of a sudden engaged to a degree you weren't before. And that's what's so great about building a parachute on the way down, is because if you disengage at that point, you just go splat. And so are you going to do that? Or are you going to be so fucking engaged, you build a parachute faster than you've ever been able to build before? And in fact, you've probably built 6. Because you have an ability, a level of ability and capacity that you rarely tap into unless you have to. And that's what leaping creates. It gives you access to you in a different way. But so it's again, it takes this conversation out of like, but don't you have to consider this? No, you don't. But what you do have to be willing to do is choose from infinite being.
Yeah. And then I was like, and then go listen to our bypassing episode we did a couple shows ago if you're having thoughts, because that's like the next thing that comes up for folks. It's like, well, then you have to like struggle and focus on the human experience and all of that. And
only if you want to. Yeah. If you want to have an out of human experience and just something that's total ease, joy, and glory, then choose different. Yeah. You can have the human experience. I know a lot of people that do this, and it's not wrong. It's full of feelings and thinking, and it takes time, and you got to process stuff, and that's okay. You can have that. If you want to beyond this reality experience, you got to do something different. And beyond this reality, all of life can come to you with ease and joy and glory. That's a possibility for you if you choose it. And it's a practice of choosing it. And it isn't for everybody. Some people want to have the human experience. Some people want to have a beyond this reality experience. And so you just have to look at what you want to have. To me, true mental health lives beyond this reality, because this reality can only offer me thinking and feeling and emotions. And I did that. And it's okay. And I still do it sometimes when I'm entertaining myself and, my body feels, and that's good. But it didn't get me where I wanted to go. It didn't change my financial reality. It didn't make my life greater. It didn't give me ease with my relationships, and it didn't make me happy.
Yeah.
And to me, those were priority. So fuck this reality. I'm going for beyond this reality, where everything's just an interesting point of view, where allowance renders me more powerful, where I actually have access to choices nobody else has. This reality did not work for me. And that's the only thing that you guys have to look at. It's like, you want the human experience? Have it. Lean into it.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I guess the kind of the avoiding and defending points of view is just so, from access consciousness right now, is so powerful, because it's like, where are we defending or those points of view, or arguing for them, arguing for our limitations to keep the reality structures in place that we've decided is the right way to function.
And you can have it. You don't even have to fight it. You can just have it. You can have whatever's going to work for you. The only reason I left all of that is because it wasn't working for me. Yeah. So the only relevant question is like, what's working and what's not working? And can you get to what's working from where you're at? Or do you need to drop what you're doing and start choosing from a totally different space and place so that you can get access to something totally different? And what's that going to be like? Writing a book right now, people. So it's like, we're staying out of the themes. Cool.
God. So what have you got going on?
Yeah, well, so you guys, as of today, don't have access to the shop, but as of tomorrow, so anytime if you're watching this in the future, go to my website. You're going to be able to access a business and money energy exercise shop, and you can buy what you need there. If you'd like to start changing the space that you are functioning from with things, that is going to be accessed accessible to you. And you can always go to infinitebeingschool.com for a taste of Access Consciousness on my end.
Amazing.
What about you? Tell me.
Amazing. Well, today I just was pinged to, hello, I have session packs available for 24 hours. So it's normally something that I have for alumni folks, but I'm doing it right now today. So if you are pinged to start expanding your reality, what does it, leave your 9 to 5, or just create a different reality, DM me. I'm here. Let me know.
Cool. Awesome. I adore you so much, woman. And thank you guys so much for watching and being here. And if you liked this, please share it with everybody. And we'll see you guys here next week.
Bye.